big cases of corruption, of course, the witnesses there will always be in danger.
Yes.
What happens is, when they're in danger, they will spend maybe 5 years, 10 years in a safe house, waiting for their case to get to trial. In the meantime, yung mga akusado are out roaming around.
Yeah.
So, of course, naturally, they lose their interest, and many of those cases never get pursued. An amendment of the rules of court to allow for perpetuation of prosecution witnesses, whistleblowers, and others in danger, I think would be a very good development as far as the issue of accountability is concerned. As far as flip-flopping, well, I'm sure everyone in this room is aware of the dangers and why we should not stop, why we should not have this practice. Legally, it is a violation of the doctrine of immutability of judgments. And that doctrine is the bedrock of any legal system. Because the moment that any judgment that's final can be reopened, then really people will lose faith. Hindi na po talaga maniniwala ang tao sa sistema. As far as the faster and cheaper justice is concerned, I would have several proposals to address that. First, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we should fill the vacancies in the trial courts. Second, we should require lower court judges to make specific evidentiary rulings. Third, I would revisit the rules on court fees and pauper litigants. I know that under the Algura case, the Supreme Court now says you don't have to strictly apply Rule 141. You can apply Section 3 of Rule 3, which is a more liberal standard. But still, some of our trial courts are still applying Rule 141. And I would want them to be aware that there is a better standard, perhaps, that should be applied. And finally, well, I would also push for the increase of the appropriations for the judiciary, because it's not only judges, but it's all the court personnel who need a lot of assistance, perhaps, so that we will be able to have that kind of independence that is needed for a judiciary.
Okay. That is a very interesting points which you have raised.
Thank you.
Now, insiders in the judiciary are saying that the appointment of an outsider as Chief Justice will cause demoralization within the ranks of the career judges and justices. Do you want to comment on that?
From a purely objective point of view, I would say that that is really something that's within the prerogative of the President, given our constitutional framework. And it is something that I think we should not tie the hands of the President as far as that decision is concerned. After all, he is the one we have elected to run this country, and we should also respect his judgment.
So, if that happens, and you will be appointed as the next Chief Justice, how are you going to address that problem of demoralization within the ranks of the career justices and judges?
I'm not so sure po that that would be the necessary result, that there would be demoralization. There have been previous instances, I believe, in our judicial history where justices have been appointed from the outside. And although there is, I'm sure in the beginning there will be a lot of adjustments and resistance, over time I am confident that that can be overcome.
I see. Okay. During the impeachment trial of the former Chief Justice, the issue on the moral fitness of the Chief Justice came out. Can you tell us your perception of moral fitness as a criteria in selecting a Chief Justice?
I think, Your Honor, a Chief Justice must be something like a monk in terms of his life. If you would look at the rules of judicial ethics, there are so many social activities that are not exactly encouraged from members of the bench. And these are the kinds of activities that would put judges or justices in contact with potential litigants and actual litigants. And to me, I'm happy to say that I do not have that kind of a lifestyle. Hindi naman po ako mahilig sa mga ganyan. Actually, I would rather stay at home, read a book, watch TV, and study my law rather than go out. I don't even play golf. So as far as that's concerned, I don't think there's any problems.
So, if you will be appointed as the next Chief Justice, how do you want to be remembered?
I'd like to be remembered as someone who was able to improve the system for the majority of the public, for the majority of the people. Someone who can say that we can truly, genuinely deliver justice to the people. Right now po, law and justice are two separate concepts for the poor. For many of our poor, they identify the law with naked power. And they see justice as just a dream, something that they can never attain in their lifetime. And I would like, at the end, if ever I can leave a legacy, to say that I have brought justice back into law.
Okay. On that point, Mr. Chair, I have no more question for Dean Diokno. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Justice Hermosissima.
Good afternoon, Dean.
Good afternoon, Justice.
I can see that you are as eloquent as your father.
Thank you, po.
You see, the tremendous inherent power in the hands of the Chief Justice and the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court require that those appointed to the position should possess the highest degree of competence, integrity, and judicial prudence. Because the administration of justice is a sacred task, entrusted only to individuals with the highest degree of competence. A judicial post is a position of honor and is offered only to those who are best qualified. Considering this, if you are appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the Philippines, what would be your judicial philosophy?
I like to think of myself, Your Honor, as a liberal, but I would qualify that a liberal who is imbued with a philosophy that respects human rights. For me, that would have to be the bedrock of everything I do as a lawyer and even as a person. So in terms of philosophy, of course, there are what they call the loose constructionists and the strict constructionists. You have those who believe in the Constitution as a living document rather than the opposite. In all of those, and those who would call themselves a judicial activist rather than a judicial conservative, someone who's very conservative, I would say I'm more on the judicial activist side, although not on that extreme. I would probably be more inclined towards a loose interpretation of the Constitution, and I would look at the Constitution as a living document.
The problem is there is no strict interpretation of what human rights are.
Yes, Your Honor, but the basis of all human rights is universal, and these are principles that apply to any person in any country, regardless of his birth, origin, background, family, relations, or anything like that. And I would like to think that even in our country, because we have incorporated international law as part of the law of the land, that all our courts are obligated to respect, protect, and promote human rights.
Do you not adhere to the resolution of the United Nations as to human rights?
The Universal Declaration, of
Yes.
course, Your Honor, as well as the International Covenant, civil and political rights, economic, social, and cultural rights. Yes, sir.
Does this mean to say that you are more inclined to favor the accused rather than the offended parties?
No, Your Honor, because you will find victims of oppression and human rights both on the side of the accused and on the side of the prosecution. The prosecution as well promotes the human rights by prosecuting those who violate the human rights of others. So I think, Your Honor, it would cut both ways.
Do you agree with the motto of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, which says, "No master but law, no guide but conscience, no aim but justice"?
Yes, I think that's a good motto, although I have my own personal motto, which I inherited from my father. This comes from Carl Llewellyn, where he said that technique without ideals is a menace. Ideals without technique are a mess.